Hey guys, and welcome back to the HobbyNut 007 channel and the Model Car Cup series. Sorry I've been away for a while. A little over a week ago, I had a flu bug got a hold of me, and it would not let go. I was miserable. But finally shook that off, and we're back at it again this morning. And so I wanted to get back into catching up on some videos and things like that. But as you recall, I had mentioned before we went to Atlanta, I did not want to debut the finished 1/32 scale Goodwrench Lumina until after Atlanta. And as you recall, I also had a little mishap with it, dropped it when I got home. Thank goodness it was a minor thing, so got that all taken care of. But as you recall, before we went to Atlanta, I'd mentioned that I had to make a new windshield. I had several things that had to be redone, and while I'm putting it back together, I decided to add one more thing to it, so you're going to get a little improved look at it too. So let's get over and take a look. A quick review. If you recall, this project started off with these two kits, an AMT and a Monogram 1/32 scale snap-togethers, and I combined the two of these kits to kind of come up with this. Now there is a lot of scratch built stuff and a lot of custom 3D printed stuff in here, as you recall from the other videos, but wanted to share with you the build sheet from all of my super detailed projects, or anything I'm going to spend a lot of time in. I want to make sure I get everything right. So we started, for example, with the body modifications, things that were going to have to be either changed, scratch build items, things like that. And you can see where they're highlighted as I got those checked off. Now there's a few things throughout on both pages that probably you'll notice didn't get marked. And that's because some of the stuff I ended up using out of the kit, or it wasn't necessary. But for the most part, everything needed a little bit of tweaking and sanding and modifying, so that's what we did. But these build sheets that I do, they really help me. They take me sometimes a couple of hours to look over each of the parts, the components. I look at the kits, then I look at my research pictures of the real cars, and then I go from there. Then I'll put the paints down I was going to use. This totally changed. I was using the Poppy Red MCW paint for the chassis and the inside of the body. The gloss black I was originally going to do like I did the 24th I did, which was going to be a tester's gloss black. I did do that, so you see it highlighted there. But I ended up changing that over to the Tamiya. And with the clear, I mean, you'll see the results here in a minute. Then the engine modifications, there was a lot of stuff that we changed there. Ended up going with a custom 3D printed engine from our brother Matthew over at MCV Products, which turned out absolutely great. Then of course the chassis modifications, interiors, and then how we're going to display it. We did a new turntable, a mirror custom to the size, and then a transport box. That's one of the big things when you're moving these things to a show. You got to have the right way, because when you put this kind of work in it, you don't want them getting damaged either. I did not do a backdrop or do a helmet on this one. I didn't think it was necessary with all of the stuff in this scale. But I may change my mind on that down the road. But now, I had mentioned I had to do those modifications to the windshield, things like that. So let's get over and take a look at those. Snap-together kits can be a lot of fun, but compared to regular model kits, they do lack in a lot of details. This holds true especially for the smaller scale. And again, this one presented its own unique challenges, and that windshield, well, the windows in general were part of that. As you see here, the window, this is on the A-pillar and the driver's side, and you see the gap there. And you could see that through that pretty well. Here it is from the passenger side. So that was going to have to be alleviated with the kind of detail we were putting in this car. So what I did was I took some evergreen, there's the part number there, 15 thousandths thick, and overlaid it onto the kit windshield, cut out a generous size, a little oversized, and then I pressed that into the window, and using a Sharpie just drew the outline over onto it. And I cut it a little bigger than the outline deliberately, because you can always cut a little bit more off at a time or sand it off depending on the thickness of the glass. And this is not vacuum formed, so you needed to allow that room for it to be able to press in. And once I got that trimmed down to where it had a nice flush fit, as you see here, then we had to go back. And by the way, this was installed with 5-minute epoxy, just a little bit across the top, bottom, and down the sides, and it worked out great. But before installing it, we used the kit windshield to get our bracing marked on the clear piece, so we could mask that off and get it painted. Moving to the back window, it fit okay top and bottom, but it needed to be, I started to make a window for the back, and then I thought, you know what, if there was a way I could flare these little wings on the ends out just a touch, not much, then that would avoid having to make one. So I very slowly and very carefully used a little bit of heat and just flared those sides out, and it worked beautifully. So we were able to use the kit back window, and you notice where I cut off the side window area there and installed them individually. There was a large gap in that if you put it in that way. So we made a piece across the bottom out of some of that 15 thousandths, and it fit beautifully. Moving over to the body, the paint I opted to use was the Tamiya TS14 Black, and after I decanted this, I mixed a pretty generous portion. I wish I'd have measured it exactly out, probably an ounce, maybe a little more than an ounce, of Mr. Hobby number 400 leveling thinner. And it, as you can see, turned out really, really smooth. And I always dust those bodies before painting with either a tack rag. In this case, I just used the Tamiya anti-static brush. And the paint, before even any buffing, you see the reflection from the STP sticker. And I mean, it really looked good. And after this, though, I went ahead and used the Novus number 2 fine scratch remover, buffed that out real good, then went to the Novus number 1 and just got a really super mirror-like finish on these cars. Next up was moving over to the decals. And so I went back and looked at the 1989-1990 Lumina, and I really liked this particular configuration, so this is the one I decided to go with. And, well, this was late 89, early 1990. And the decals we used were was a combination of the Slicks decals and the old Jax decals in 1/32 scale. And you can still find the Slicks 1/32 decals on eBay very easily. And then once the body was decaled, and always loved that Goodwrench car. It just very, well, intimidating, but it looked pretty good. And before we installed the chassis, I went back, as you can see here, and used some of the burnt carbon and airbrushed just a little burnt carbon on the silver there, right above where the exhaust dumps come out right there. So where the pipes come out, you had a little bit of that heat stain burn right there on the body, which I thought that looked pretty good. Next up was the fuel inlet. Now, I had drilled this out, and I started just to use silver paint down in there. And I thought, well, I need it to be more of an aluminum look. So we used our Micromark punch, found one that was the size that would fit down in there, punched that, and then went down 2 sizes, punched out the center, and then using a straight pin, indented the little rivet marks there. And I think that looks really sharp. Here's a look in the trunk. with everything installed. You see at the fuel inlet there where the piece is sticking out, the press in for the quick release. And you get a look at the ribbing under the deck lid, the bulkheads that have been added, all of that stuff. Next up were the rear end chains. Now, if you've followed any of my NASCAR builds, you know that these chains actually hold the rear end in place, and you'll see these on most all of the cars. That way, when you jack it up, the trailing arms don't drop all the way to the ground. So these are hooked to the rear of the trailing arm, as you see here, and up to the chassis. Now this picture is one of the Wood Brothers cars, and you see they've got some like heat shrink over the chain there. All of the cars I ever worked on had these chains, but I don't think I know we didn't have the heat sink on there. And the biggest challenge was finding the chain in that scale. And usually what I'll do is I'll go to a dime store and I'll go through the costume jewelry, and something that I can find for $1.99 or less, or sometimes a few bucks more, but find the chain that's in the right scale. Well, I found this at Michael's, and it was just absolutely perfect for it. A little blurry in that picture, but you see the retaining chain is there. Next up was the cooling ducts. And as you see here, the brake cooling it is really an important thing on these race cars. And that ductwork catches the air, and of course, and it feeds it back around to the brakes. Right here, you see a team that had 3 on there, so they were serious about keeping those brakes cool. Me personally, I only saw 1. The most I ever saw was 2 of the ducts on there, but I can't remember. This was on a Taurus, and I cannot remember whose car it was, but they really were serious about their brake cooling. And these ducts, by the way, come in a number of colors. I've seen them in flat black. I've seen them in white. I've seen them in this red really often. And they also, the ones you'll see that usually run inside the car, have an aluminum or metallic finish to them, almost like a foil coating. And these are just a thick, flexible plastic. And the way I made them was I found a piece of K&S tubing that was small enough to be in scale. I took some copper wire, and I'm going to do a tutorial on making these cooling ducts, by the way. Wrapped it around, and then pulled the coil, stretched it out just a touch, got the length I needed, and then I took and wrapped each of the coils with thread tape, just the white plumber's type thread tape, pressed it in really good, and then slid them off of the rod and onto some skewers so I could get them painted. And as you see here, they are flexible, so you're able to maneuver these around. And for this one, I went ahead and shot them in Testors flat red. And I had mentioned too, by the way, the little fall it took. Well, here you see after we got back from Atlanta, after I dropped it, I had removed the chassis. I had about 6 or 7 pieces that popped loose, small pieces that were inside. Thank goodness it only fell about 3, maybe 4 inches from where I was holding it. It landed on a folded up t-shirt. But it was a hard enough hit that it knocked some stuff loose. So I decided while I had that off, and there's some of the parts that were knocked off of it. But it got all those back together, and everything really looks good. So let's get over and take a look at the finished product. And here she is, guys, our Dale Earnhardt 1990 Goodwrench Lumina. I'm really pleased with the way it turned out. A lot of work in this one, a lot of scratch building, a lot of modifications, because, as I've said a bazillion times, it was a snap-together toy. So there had to be a lot of work that went into it, but it was fun. Challenging at times, yeah, but it was really good, especially the areas where there's no 32nd scale parts available. But thank goodness for the 3D printing. Miguel at HobbyWerks, many thanks, kudos for the inside trunk ribbing, the brake calipers, all of that, just tons of stuff, the shocks, all of that stuff that he reduced to 32nd scale. And Matthew at Model Car Videos, MCV products for the reduced 350 Chevy engine. And I tell you, that made all the difference in the world, because if you remember from previous videos, the engine was the one thing that I was not satisfied with at all. And when Matthew reduced that thing, it made it so much easier. And I think it turned out really, really nice. In Atlanta, it finally got to its debut in Atlanta, and it actually made a top 10, which is a huge honor to make a top 10 in Atlanta. When you've got pushing 1,000 cars, to be a top 10 is quite an honor, and I truly, truly appreciate that very, very much. But a challenging little kit. I do have some 32nd scale decals for several other cars, and I won't rule this out. In fact, it was enough fun that I may do one sooner than I thought I would. But a lot of fun, and a great reward to have it finished. I'm going to have a case made for it so I can keep it displayed with my other stuff here. Really pleased with the way the paint turned out and the overall details. There's always that one thing that you can tweak. You know what? It just dawned on me. There's one thing I omitted, and that is, if you'll notice on the hood, up at the front of the hood, up there, I had at Atlanta a white bow tie on there, and that was wrong for the Lumina. The Monte Carlo had the white bow tie. The Lumina had a red bow tie up there, so I took the white one off. I can't believe I forgot that before I started this video, but it will be going on right after this video, because there's the 32nd scale red bow tie that I was going to put on it before the video. Forgot. But that'll be going on here in just a few minutes. But I really think this is a unique car to be so small, and I really challenged myself, and kind of proud of myself for what I was able to accomplish in it. And like everything, there's always a few things that it's difficult to find or get exactly right, especially the smaller the scale. But I am kind of glad this one's over with now, so I'm going to get back onto the USAC build and back on the Mustang, so I'll be working on those back and forth. But looking forward to both of those big time, the Saturday Night Short Track group build. But this short track Lumina, wow, again, a lot of fun. I love a black race car, and it just really nice. Well, guys, thank you so much. Head over to HobbyNut Models. Be sure to check out Mark's inventory. He's got a lot of stuff going through Christmas, some good sales, great tools, good paint, and awesome amount of kits. So check them out, whether you're an aircraft, tank, car, whatever you build, get over and check them out. Guys, thanks for the support on this one. Appreciate you very much. We love you. Hope you have a great holiday season. God bless, and we will see you in that next video. Thanks so much, guys.